Evet, değerli Art TV izleyenleri, bugün 2023 senesinin Ocak ayının 13'ü Cuma günü. Yine bilimsel bir gündemle huzurlarınızdayım. Şimdi Newton'un optiğinin teolojik muhtevalı son kısmını e, hem orijinalinden hem Türkçe'ye çeviri denemesinden okumuştuk. Şimdi Newton'un bir de Principia'sı var ve Principia'nın da 3. kitabının sonuna eklenmiş. İngilizcesinde General Scholium tabir edilen umumi şerh diye tercüme edebileceğimiz bir kısmı vardır. Birkaç sayfalık ve Principia'nın 3. kitabının sonunda da Newton teolojik fikirlerini kozmolojik fikirlerle kaynaştırarak sunmaktadır. Benim bugünkü niyetim bu umumi şerh kısmının e, İngilizce çevirisinden okunması. Zira Newton'un Principia'sı aslen Latinceymiş. Latinceden İngilizceye çevrilmişmiş. Şimdi bu arada önce çeviriye esas aldığım, istifade ettiğim kaynağın e, bazı bilgilerini sunayım. Şimdi bu Andrew Motte'nin çevirdiği bir versiyonmuş. Yani Isaac Newton'un Latince yazdığını Andrew Motte İngilizceye çevirmiş ve bu takriben 1846 senesinde yayınlanmış bir Amerikan baskısından e, alınmış. Bu Amerika'da Newton'un ilk baskısıymış ve buna N.W. Chittenden adlı kişi bir ön söz yazmışmış. New York'ta Daniel Addy tarafından 45. Liberty Street'te neşredilmiş. Ve bunun internetteki adresi, bu PDF dosyasının internetteki adresi https://archive.org/details Newton's Mathema 00 Newt adlı adres. Bunu Archive.org sitesinden kolaylıkla bulabiliyorsunuz. Ve bu PDF dosyası halinde ve çeşitli versiyonlarda orada vardır. Benim şu anda önümde açık duran PDF dosyasının 594 sayfa tuttuğunu ve bu önümde açık duran umumi şerh kısmının yazıldığı sayfanın bu 594'lük sayfanın 509. sayfası olduğunu söyleyelim. Ama bunlar izafi olabilir. Kitabın kendi sayfaları mıdır yoksa PDF sistemine göre atfedilmiş sayfalar mıdır? Bakacağım şimdi. Kitabın kendi sayfalarına göre söylersek öz sayfalarına göre 504. sayfasındadır. General Scholium tabir edilen umumi şerh kısmı ki Principia'nın 3. kitabının sonuna ekli bir kısım olarak dikkatimi çekmiştir. Bu PDF dosyasının aslı ise Kaliforniya Üniversitesi'nin kütüphanesinde duran bir nüshasından tarayıcı taranmak suretiyle elektronik kitap haline dönüştürülmüş ve Archive.org sitesine yüklenerek yayınlanmıştır. Şimdi tabi Latincesi bizim gibi fanileri aşar. O Latincesi de var internette. Meraklısı onu da bulabilir ama biz İngilizcesinden şöyle bir okuyalım. Yani Andrew Motte'nin çevirisinden okuyalım. Ondan sonra benim oradan tercüme etme denememi okur. Ve belki birazcık bu fikirleri şerh ederiz. General Scholium. The hypothesis of vortices is pressed with many difficulties. That every planet by a radius drawn to the Sun may describe areas proportional to the times of description, the periodic times of the several parts of the vortices should observe the duplicate proportion of their distances from the Sun. But that the periodic times of the planets may obtain the sesquiplicate proportion of their distances from the Sun, the periodic times of the parts of the vortex ought to be in the sesquiplicate proportion of their distances. That the smaller vortices may maintain their lesser revolutions about Saturn, Jupiter, and other planets, and swim quietly and undisturbed in the greater vortex of the Sun, the periodic times of the parts of the Sun's vortex should be equal. But the rotation of the Sun and the planets about their axes, which ought to correspond with the motions of the vortices, recede far from all these proportions. The motions of the comets are exceedingly regular, are governed by the same laws with the motions of the planets, and can by no means be accounted for by the hypotheses of vortices. For comets are carried with very eccentric motions through all parts of the heavens indifferently, with a freedom that is incompatible with the notion of a vortex. Bodies projected in our air suffer no resistance but from the air. Withdraw the air, as is done in Mr. Boyle's vacuum, and the resistance ceases. For in this void, a bit of fine down and a piece of solid gold descend with equal velocity, and the parity of reason must take place in the celestial spaces above the earth's atmosphere, in which spaces, where there is no air to resist their motions, all bodies will move with the greatest freedom, and the planets and comets will constantly pursue their revolutions in orbits given in kind and position, according to the laws above explained. But though these bodies may indeed persevere in their orbits by the mere laws of gravity, yet they could by no means have at first derived the regular position of the orbits themselves from those laws. The six primary planets are revolved about the Sun in circles concentric with the Sun, and with motions directed towards the same parts, and almost in the same plane. 10 moons are revolved about the Earth, Jupiter, and Saturn in circles concentric with them, with the same direction of motion, and nearly in the planes of the orbits of those planets. But it is not to be conceived that mere mechanical causes could give birth to so many regular motions, since the comets range over all parts of the heavens in very eccentric orbits. For by that kind of motion they pass easily through the orbs of the planets, and with great rapidity, and in their aphelions, where they move the slowest, and are detained the longest, they recede to the greatest distances from each other, and thence suffer the least disturbance from their mutual attractions. This most beautiful system of the Sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. And if the fixed stars are the centers of other like systems, these being formed by the likewise counsel must be all subject to the dominion of one, especially since the light of the fixed stars is of the same nature with the light of the sun, and from every system light passes into all other systems. And lest the systems of the fixed stars should, by their gravity, fall on each other mutually, he had placed those systems at immense distances one from another. This being governs all things, not as the soul of the world, but as Lord over all, and on account of his dominion he is wont to be called Lord God, Pantocrator, or universal ruler. For God is a relative word and has a respect to servants, and deity is the dominion of God not over his own body, as those imagine who fancy God to be the soul of the world, but over servants. The Supreme God is a being eternal, infinite, absolutely perfect, but a being, however perfect, without dominion, cannot be said to be Lord God. For we say, my God, your God, the God of Israel, the God of gods, and Lord of lords, Lord of lords. But we do not say, my eternal, your eternal, the eternal of Israel, the eternal of gods. We do not say, my infinite, or my perfect. These are titles which have no respect to servants. The word God usually signifies Lord, but every Lord is not a God. It is the dominion of a spiritual being which constitutes a God. A true supreme or imaginary dominion makes a true supreme or imaginary God. And from his true dominion it follows that the true God is a living, intelligent, and powerful being. And from his other perfections that he is supreme or most perfect. He is eternal and infinite, omnipotent and omniscient, that is, his duration reaches from eternity to eternity, his presence from infinity to infinity. He governs all things and knows all things that are or can be done. He is not eternity or infinity, but eternal and infinite. He is not duration or space, but he endures and is present. He endures forever and is everywhere present, and by existing always and everywhere, he constitutes duration and space. Since every particle of space is always and every indivisible moment of duration is everywhere, certainly the Maker and Lord of all things cannot be never and nowhere. Every soul that has perception is, though in different times and in different organs of sense and motion, still the same indivisible person. There are given successive parts in duration, coexistent parts in space, but neither the one nor the other in the person of a man or his thinking principle, and much less can they be found in the thinking substance of God. Every man, so far as sees a thing that has perception, is one and the same man during his whole life, in all and each of his organs of sense. God is the same God always and everywhere. He is omnipresent, not virtually only, but also substantially, for virtue cannot subsist without substance. In him are all things contained and moved, yet neither affects the other. God suffers nothing from motion of bodies. Bodies find no resistance from the omnipresence of God. It is allowed by all that the Supreme God exists necessarily, and by the same necessity he exists always and everywhere, whence also he is all similar all eye, all ear, all brain, all arm, all power to perceive, to understand, and to act, but in a manner not at all human, in a manner not at all corporeal, in a manner utterly unknown to us. As a blind man has no idea of colors, so have we no idea of the manner by which the all-wise God perceives and understands all things. He is utterly void of all body and bodily figure, and can therefore neither be seen, nor heard, nor touched, nor ought he to be worshipped under the representation of any corporeal thing. We have ideas of his attributes, but what the real substance of anything is, we know not. In bodies, we see only their figures and colors. We hear only the sounds. We touch only their outward surfaces. We smell only the smells and taste the savors. But their inward substances are not to be known either by our senses or by any reflex act of our minds. Much less then have we any idea of the substance of God. We know him only by his most wise and excellent contrivances of things and final causes. We admire him for his perfections, but we reverence and adore him on account of his dominion. For we adore him as his servants, and a God without dominion, providence, and final causes is nothing else but fate and nature. Blind metaphysical necessity, which is certainly the same always and everywhere, could produce no variety of things. All that diversity of natural things which we find suited to different times and places could arise from nothing but the ideas and will of a being necessarily existing. But by way of allegory, God is said to see, to speak, to love, to hate, to desire, to give, to receive, to rejoice, to be angry, to fight, to frame, to work, to build. For all our notions of God are taken from the ways of mankind by a certain similitude, which though not perfect, has some likeness, however. And thus much concerning God to discourse of whom from the appearances of things does certainly belong to natural philosophy. Hitherto, we have explained the phenomena of the heavens and our sea by the power of gravity, but have not yet assigned the cause of this power. This is certain that it must proceed from a cause that penetrates to the very centers of the sun and planets, without suffering the least diminution of its force, that operates not according to the quantity of the surfaces of the particles upon which it acts, as mechanical causes used to do, but according to the quantity of the solid matter which they contain, and propagates its virtue on all sides to immense distances, decreasing always in the duplicate proportion of the distances. Gravitation towards the sun is made up out of the gravitations toward the several particles of which the body of the sun is composed, and in receding from the sun decreases accurately the duplicate proportion of the distances as far as the orb of Saturn, as evidently appears from the quiescence of the aphelions of the planets, nay, and even to the remotest aphelions of the comets, if those aphelions are also quiescent. But hitherto I have not been able to discover the cause of those properties of gravity from phenomena, and I frame no hypotheses, for whatever is not deduced from the phenomena is to be called an hypothesis. And hypotheses, whether metaphysical or physical, whether of occult qualities or mechanical, have no place in experimental philosophy. In this philosophy, particular propositions are inferred from the phenomena and afterwards rendered general by induction. Thus, it was that the impenetrability, the mobility, and the impulsive force of bodies, and the laws of motion and of gravitation were discovered. And to us, it is enough that gravity does really exist and act according to the laws which we have explained, and abundantly serves to account for all the motions of the celestial bodies and of our sea. And now, we might add something concerning a certain most subtle spirit, which pervades and lies hid in all gross bodies, by the force and action of which spirit the particles of bodies mutually attract one another at near distances and cohere if contiguous, and electric bodies operate to greater distances, as well repelling as attracting the neighboring corpuscles. And light is emitted, reflected, refracted, inflected, and heats bodies, and all sensation is excited, and the members of animal bodies move at the command of the will, namely, by the vibrations of this spirit, mutually propagated along the solid filaments of the nerves, from the outward organs of the sense to the brain, and from the brain into the muscles. But these are things that cannot be explained in few words, nor are we furnished with that sufficiency of experiments which is required to an accurate determination and demonstration of the laws by which this electric and elastic spirit operates. Principia Mathematica'nın 3. kitabının sonu bu şekilde nihayete eriyor. Şimdi bunu okuduktan sonra bir de bunu Türkçe'ye çevirmek çok zor ama deneme mahiyetinde de olsa bir deneyelim onu.